Hello and welcome back to Sharks Happen. On today's show, we're going to go over a diver, we're going to go over a surfer, we're going to go over a swimmer, we're going to go over these attacks, and then at the end of the show, we'll go over what is definitely, you don't hear that every day, so stick around, we're going to have a great show. Okay, we're going to start out our show over at Nukadamu Village, which is on the Udu coast of Fiji, and the date is March 21st of 2011. Metereti Jeke, he is 30 years old, and he is with his mother, her husband, and a couple other relatives, and they go over to a reef, and it's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and they are diving. I'm not sure if they were diving, collecting anything, but they're diving at a reef, and he is suddenly attacked by a shark. And when they get him out of the water and to be able to deal with his arm, it is shredded. The whole forearm, it sounds like the paper says part of it was gone. Part of his arm was already gone. So it was shredded. They put cloth on it and it kept bleeding. So the father ended up taking, the one relative ended up taking and using a rope to make the tourniquet, and he gets in and they end up having to surgically amputate most of his forearm from a few inches down from his elbow off. The damage was too great from what the shark had done. They weren't able to identify the shark. Being by a reef, you know, it's a pick 'em again. You're going to have so many different, you know, kinds of sharks over there at those reefs. You know, just tigery or reef sharks, your white tip, black tip. It doesn't need to be a large shark to do that. It only took part of his arm and it probably didn't bite through the bone. So Metereti Jeke, 30 years old, we go put him down as an attack, not an attempt to predate. We just don't know what type of shark. Okay, now we're going to head over to Hawa Bush Beach Park, and that is 5 miles south of Iwa Beach, and that is in Oahu, Hawaii. The date is November 26, 1978. Wendell Cabunoc, he is 18 years old and he is out doing some surfing. Doesn't say what time of the day it is, but he does say the water is murky and brown, can't see in the water. And he is in the process of taking himself a wave in, gets 25 yards from shore, very close to shore. And he says that he takes a tumble in this wave. And as soon as he does, he says he's hit hard in the arm. And he gets himself up on his board and goes the rest of the way in. He gets in, and it ripped out his bicep, his inner elbow, taking a nerve and a tendon with it. So a nerve and an artery with it. So the shark removed all of the top of his arm. And this is another one just like we went over with the other gentleman that was south of a river mouth, and again, murky water, he could not see in it, and he even said to himself as he's paddling out, maybe this isn't the best idea, I can't see. Stuck his hand in there, pulled it out, and he was missing that chunk of arm that I told you where to go to see the damage that was done in that situation. Another split second, another hit on an arm, and another person having to go in, and this one removed the piece that maybe if the other guy didn't rip his arm out, he would have lost that piece too. They didn't identify the shark, but they did say that there was an 8-foot shark seen in the area around the time of this attack. So we're going to put this down for Wendell as an attack, not an attempt to predate, by an 8-foot shark. We just don't know what species. Okay, now we're going to head out to Horseshoe Rock. That is located in California, and the date on this is September 24th of 2015. Darren Kenney, he is out and he is in his kayak, and he's got himself in 60 feet deep water because he measured it, because he's going to be fishing for some yellowtail. If you fish for yellowtail, they kind of hang out down below some other fish will gather above them. You've got to get down past the ones, at least in the Keys, to get down to them. And if you remember my story of the mud balling, yellowtail is what we were catching that day, and oh, are they delicious. So Darren's got himself out and he's going to try to catch some yellowtail. And it's in the morning, it's clear water. He's out there and he's in his kayak and he's not even got a line in the water yet. He's just tying off his line. He's getting ready to go ahead and go ahead and fish, and suddenly he is blasted. He says a little bit, about a third of the way up from the front of the kayak gets blasted, and it sends him flying in the air, and he lands into the water. And no telling of the shark. He doesn't even mention seeing the shark when he's in the water. He gets blasted up out of the kayak, ends up in the water, and then climbs back into the kayak. Now Darren's got a problem that the kayak is sinking, and it's sinking fast. This kayak was bit, and it was cut pretty severely by these teeth, and this thing's going down. He says, now I'm sitting there, and I got one piece of plastic that I'm hanging on to float. So he's freaking out. He sees that his phone and other things are floating nearby him. Grabs onto that, and he calls his wife. And he tells his wife, hey, just got blasted by a shark. I'm sitting here, my kayak's gone, I'm floating, I need help. And then he sees a boat going by, and he flags it down with his oar. They come over and get him up out of the water. They look into the kayak, 16-inch wide bite marks on this thing. And they went by the bite mark, and I don't think they got a tooth, but they said it's a 19.5-foot great white shark that came blasting him from underneath, hitting him in his kayak that morning and sending him into the water, leaving him only one piece of plastic to float around there. Crazy attack. He did end up with a cut on his ear and a hurt thumb. I think a dislocated thumb or something. Probably from the impact of, the thing hitting you, and you don't even know what's going on. You're going to be hitting stuff that you didn't even know was going on. It doesn't sound like the shark did it, so we're going to put this down as an attack, not an attempt to predate, a fatality to the kayak, no injury to Darren, and we'll move on. Okay, now we're going to head over to Alamento Beach, which is over in South Australia, and the date is January 19th of 1975. David Barrowman was out doing some surfing with his friends. There's no telling time of day, distance from shore. All that we know is he was swimming out to retrieve his board, and he disappeared. Search is launched. They never do find anything. The thing is his mother, I'm going to put these two clips in there that I found of this attack. His mother claims that it wasn't an attack, that a friend had told him. The friend was only 10 meters away, so you're talking 30 feet away, and said that he was looking over at David and saw him turn blue in the face, and he just sort of slid off of his board. And there was no disturbance of the water, there was no blood in the water, there was nothing. David just disappeared. So she was saying that he had a heart condition. He had a enlarged heart that he actually had an operation for when he was a kid, and that's what had happened, and he had just slid off the board and drowned. Now the other clip sounds like a few boys were on their way to rescue and try to find him when David disappeared, and the one claims he heard a shout of help shark, scream help shark before he got over there. So I would say this is a shark attack. I mean, you got a witness saying that they heard shark attack, and yeah, I understand the kid might have a condition and stuff, but I don't think somebody's going to hear the word shark attack just out of the blue, and the kid disappears. So how we're going to put it down is an attack, a predation. We don't know what kind of shark or how large. Okay, now we're going to head over to Silver Strand Beach, and that is over in Hong Kong. And the date on this attack is June 11th of 1993. Kwong Kong-Hing, he is out doing his morning swim. He and a friend entered the water at 5:30. His friend says that they do this, at least Kwong goes into the water and does this swim every morning. So they enter the water at 5:30, and it's 7:15 in the morning. So it's quite a long swim. And Kwong is in chest deep water, so you're about 4.5 feet deep water probably, and he is attacked by a shark. His friend is with him, and he's only about 10 feet from him at the time. Not looking, it doesn't sound like, over at Kwong, and his friend is Man Ching Wong, I think his name is. But Man heard a scream from somebody else, shark attack, and he cleared out of the water. He swam his way in, and when he got in, he turned around and he looked, and he saw that it was Kwong, and he was laying in a pool of blood. And now him and a couple other gentlemen make their way out, and they retrieve the body and get Kwong back to shore, who unfortunately they say was passed away before he even got back to shore. He ended up having his entire leg removed, and his left hand also was removed. So he lost his left hand, maybe defensive, and he lost his entire left leg. And this, they think, because there was a witness on the near the beach, this woman had saw 2 sharks swimming in the area around there. They were about 6 feet. She says one of them was 2 meters, one of them was 1 meter. First of all, you're quite a ways away, so the shark is probably a little bigger than her estimates from how far away she is. But others had also said that they saw a couple of 6-foot sharks swimming around there. And, you know, 6-foot sharks, it sounds to me like bull sharks. That sounds like, what is his name? Frederick Bergstaller and both Nichols. John Nichols is his name. He's the one who ended up in 3 pieces when a shark dragged him. Smaller, well, it wasn't smaller with him. I believe it was a larger shark that dragged him out. But 3 sharks converged on him. The witnesses watched the fins come over as he was dragged off. But it was definitely only a 7-footer that grabbed onto Frederick Bergstaller in the shallows. And he sat there and had a battle with it, losing an arm, losing a leg, and he ended up passing away. Nobody would come out there to help him for it. And that's what this sounds like, you know, these smaller sharks that are removing body parts on it, thinking it's tiger, bull, or a great white with that kind of a strength to their teeth. Maybe others have it, but to remove the whole leg, that's a pretty big bone to go through. If you're, you know, I don't think any kind of a reef shark could do such a thing. So that's the attack on Kwong. An attack, not an attempt to predate. Took his leg and took his hand, I think, in defensive, but that's all it did, and it swam off and left him in a pool of blood long enough that he was, you know, they came out and they were able to get him out of the water. And then we just don't know what size, well, actually what type of shark. We know it's around 6 feet by the witnesses that saw the sharks in the area. So that's the story of Kwong, and we'll get on to the last attack, the unprovoked attacks for the show. Okay, now we're going to finish out our unprovoked attacks. We're going to head over to Stinson Beach, which is in California. And the date on this attack is May 31st of 2002. Lee Fontan, he is 24 years old, and he is out doing some afternoon surfing. It's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and he is out with about 12 to 15 others. So there's a lot of them out there in the water surfing, and most of them are 50, 60 yards from shore. Lee is about 10 to 15 feet further out than him. So he's a little bit further out than the crowd. They're all sitting around, it sounds like waiting on a wave and talking, and then the other surfers hear a scream. They hear noise, and they turn around. And the one says he turns around and he saw the surfer, he saw Lee about 3 or 4 feet out of the water in the jaws of the shark, of a massive shark. A 12 to 15 foot great white is what they're saying it was. But this thing came and grabbed him from his board, coming up out of the water. They said that you could see its dorsal fin out of the water. So half the shark's body's out of the water with Lee in its mouth. They said Lee is punching on the shark, and they said that he hit it good once in the snout. Oh, where is your snout? Got him good in the snout. But the shark still fell into the water with him. So the shark lifts him up out of the water. He's beating on the shark. And the shark just falls into the water with Lee in his mouth. And as soon as it hits the water, it lets him go and it goes on its way. His friends go and they help him get into shore, and he gets into shore, and they see the damage that ends up being done in this attack. He was bitten multiple times. He got bit in the leg, and it was I believe it was an 8-inch gash that's down by the back of the leg that goes all the way to the femur. So it's a deep cut there. And then he also had a bite to his left arm and to his back. Now that could have been the same bite, but it sounds like he was bitten twice in this attack with the shark. The witnesses, the people on the boards around him, said that you could see the gums of the shark. So we'll put up my favorite. This is my favorite great white clip that I own. Just scary, man, when you can see those gums and those teeth like that. That shark means business. They were saying that they could see that it was thrashing its tail around and everything. But, you know, their buddy ends up getting out of this and survives the attack. And like I said, 12, 15 footer. Sounds like a double bite attack, but no flesh removal. Just sounds like the typical East U.S. California great white attack on a surfer. An attack, not an attempt to predate. 12 to 15 foot great white shark. Just an insane story that it lifted that guy out of the water 3 feet. And the friends had said it wasn't horrifying as much as it was, you couldn't believe what you were watching. So that would be probably what my friends would think. What the hell is he doing up in that shark's mouth? And it reminds me of the attack where the one guy's sitting there, and the surfers are a different breed, and these guys are out there, and his buddy is surfing, and he didn't see what had happened, but in that attack, the shark came up and kind of knocked the board right out from underneath his buddy, and his buddy ends up in the water, and the buddy looks over at him, and he says to himself, "What are you doing in the water with the shark there?" just not able to take in exactly what's going on, and I can imagine that, seeing a person taken a few feet out of the water in the shark's jaws. Not a lot of attacks have that happen. Lloyd Skinner is one of the craziest ones I've heard of, where the shark actually brought him back to the surface and kind of swam around for the beach to all see him in his mouth. That kind of reminds me of it when I hear about people in a shark's mouth above the water. It makes me think of Lloyd Skinner. That's the attack. And like I said, attack, not an attempt to predate, 12 foot, 15 foot great white, and that's the attacks for the show. We'll get to the end of the show with You Don't Hear That Every Day next. Okay, before we get into the end of the show, just one little comment. I was going through my David Baldrige, one of my H. David Baldrige books. It said the southernmost attack by a shark was South Island, New Zealand. That doesn't seem very south to me. And again, he worked on attacks up till 1960. That's about the time that he had worked on attacks. So he didn't have anything after 1960. But still, South Island, New Zealand does not sound extremely south for a shark attack. So I guess what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to find out what the farthest north attack is, and Canada's probably going to be there. I think Canada, Newfoundland, something like that. And then what the farthest southern attack is. So I'm going to have to look in, see where I can find out these attacks end up happening. But today we're going to go in 1924. We're going to talk about England today, the UK. Weymouth. In 1944 in Weymouth, over in the UK, there were some fishermen, and they were out and they had caught a shark. And this was a 12-foot shark reportedly, and I'm pretty sure this is a thresher shark, because it's reported it broke two of their, I believe it's their arms, broke two of the men's arms with its tail before they got it up onto the boat. And this is the problem with those threshers. They're not as dangerous, and there were mackerel fishers too, and you know they're mackerel sharks, so it makes sense that a mackerel shark would be after the mackerel that the mackerel fisherman caught, and that's exactly what a thresher is, and those tails are dangerous, and they're more dangerous out of the water than probably their teeth are. They'll break bones, but I can't remember what book it was, but one of the books had that somebody was decapitated by one of them tails, a very large thresher shark. Thing came over like a whip and took his head off, which is supposedly the story. But again, I don't have all the books that I've read. There's a couple of them out there still that I don't have that I used to have. So that's the story on the Weymouth fishermen. I just thought that I'd bring that up because we haven't talked about threshers very much, and I'm pretty sure with it being in the UK and with it being busted bones by the tail, it's more than likely going to be a thresher shark that they got a hold of. So I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you'll be back in a few more days, but remember, if you go into that water, you are much more afraid of these sharks than they are of you.